Hello, it's Nikki and welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad so many of you are loving the interviews and thank you so much for sharing, rating and reviewing. I so appreciate it. Anyway, I wanted to continue the conversation of success. So often we hear the extremes, don't we, of rags to riches, homeless to billionaire, sleeping on a random sofa to a blinged up palace. But what about the in-between bits? I know personally I have had many. How do you get from A to Z? But also, how do you get from A to B or F to M? In these mini episodes, I want to provide questions to ponder, ideas that might spark a brainstorm, or raise topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, but they will support you to go to the next level of your business. As always, please come over to social media at Nikki Raby, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and breakthroughs. Hello and welcome to another little mini episode to help you really understand what's been going on over the last year or so and to really help you prepare for the year ahead. I have been in huge creation mode recently, and as I've mentioned before on the podcast, when I go into creation mode, I have to go really quiet. I almost have to become a bit of a hermit and curl up and really get connected with that sort of intuition, my creativity. It sounds very indulgent, doesn't it? But I have to really dedicate myself to the cause. And the reason that I want to talk about this is that so often we are expected to be able to create magic and to do things and to launch stuff and to be replying to emails and have 100 million other tabs open on our computer. And for me, that's just not the way that I work. And when I'm in a creative project, I really have to give myself the time and the space to dedicate myself to it. And it really pays off for me. And I often get this sort of feeling around this time of year, and usually my goal setting for the year ahead begins in November. My birthday is November the 9th, and for me that always feels a really lovely time to start reflecting on the year that has gone past, but also thinking about the year ahead and what I want to achieve, what I want to change, what the next year is all going to be about. Of course, we can all plan and strategize, and then sometimes life gets in the way and we get thrown curveballs that we're not expected. Of course, I understand this. I know. But for me, it helps me to be really intentional, because for many years I used to just see what would happen, or I would wait for the phone to ring, or I would cross my fingers or hope for the best. And that doesn't help me, because actually it puts me in a really negative mindset. It allows me to fester and to think about, oh, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe they're never going to ring, or maybe this isn't going to happen. And it's really not the way. So for me, being really intentional, being really clear about what I want to achieve and getting really specific on what that looks like, all have been really useful. Next year, 2019, is an interesting one. Some things I can tell you about, some things I can't yet. And it's an unknown of what next year is going to look like, because I've made some really bold moves, and some of the things that I'm going to be doing next year I haven't done before. And I would love to be able to have that expert knowledge already and saying it's all going to be fine, it's all going to be great, and positive mindset. But there are some things that I'm going to be building within my business that I actually have no idea how I'm going to do them and how to even get started. But I did feel like this about the podcast at the beginning of the year. I had no idea how to start a podcast, to grow a podcast. I didn't know whether I'd be able to do it consistently or not. And I've surprised myself. So I'm going to be really connecting with those things that I've done already, that perhaps were unexpected, that perhaps were out of my comfort zone, and really using that kind of energy and that positivity to channel into the year ahead. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what this creation mode looks like and give you some real sort of practical steps to work through. I'm going to be sharing 10 things that you can do to really figure out this next chapter. Creativity, or getting creative, or feeling like it, sometimes it can be procrastination in disguise. So how many times, I know I've done it myself as well, have I thought, I'll wait to feel creative, or when I'm in the right headspace, I will start that project. However, if I unpick that slightly, I only have to go one layer deeper and suddenly I'm going, I'm not waiting for that headspace. I'm frightened about doing it. I'm unsure how to get going. So I'm just going to give myself this story of not knowing the answers or being happy in this procrastination mode, when actually I need to unpick why I'm scared about this and why I'm hesitating. So that's quite an interesting headspace to play around with. And once you start to peel back the layers, and almost like you're doing a Cosmopolitan quiz from the 90s and going down and asking yourself the questions of yes, no, oh, go here, go to the next one, and getting to the worst possible scenario, it will give you lots of clues as to why maybe you're not moving forward or doing things in the way that you want to. So grab a piece of paper and a pen, and let's get into these 10 steps. So number 1 is all about reflection. So when I'm making business goals, I'm thinking about the things that I would like to create, whether that's new packages, new offerings, things that I want to start talking about, content, how I want to show up in the next level of my business. I always do a huge reflection. And you can go back and listen to the other episode, which is much more deeper into how you can reflect and how you can understand what's been going on. But it's going to be really interesting for you to ask yourself some quite probing questions. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it gets a bit ugly, and you might see those repeat offenders, those patterns that pop up to say hello every single time, where you're like, I can't believe this is still holding me back, or I can't believe I've done the same thing again. I should know better. But really thinking about that reflection mode of what's been working, what's been going on, what did your audience respond to, what converted into sales, because after all, we're trying to run businesses, aren't we? We're trying to get profit. This is the name of the game. So likes and comments on an Instagram post don't necessarily convert into money in your bank account. So it's really important that we're always focused on the money as well. So I know also when we think about this, you might have a few blocks that will come up of like, well, I don't need it to make loads of money. But as I always say, it isn't an either or choice. You want to be able to have a profitable business, but also do what you love. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is creating a mind map. So I grab a piece of paper and a pen, and in the middle, I put, how can I be useful? This has been a really interesting way of looking at things for me, because there is something in me that only speaks if I have something useful or interesting to say. And I'm really glad that I have this sort of thing, because sometimes I see on social media people just waffling on about all kinds of rubbish, and you think nobody cares. So I do always think that when I'm creating content or a new product or service or something like that, how can I be useful? What are my clients looking for? What are the stories that I hear all the time? Where are they struggling? Where are they falling down? Where do they need a little bit more help or assistance? Or perhaps what would be much easier for them if they had my support? So that's a really interesting starting point for you, and doing it in a mind map allows you to have that free flow of a brainstorm and really capture lots of different types of ideas. That's not to say that you'll use all of them by any means, but what you'll start to see is themes. You'll start to be able to piece them together and think, oh yeah, that would work great with that, or ooh, that would be cool if I just added this and this and this, and you get those kind of creative juices flowing. Number 3, be willing to get quiet. So I mentioned at the top of this episode that it's really important to give yourself that time and space. And sometimes I don't get my best ideas when I'm sitting in front of my computer, really hoping for the best and trying to pull out a brilliant, I'm kind of stuttering over my words, trying to pull out the most magnificent idea. For me, movement really helps. So even though sometimes it plays against that sort of corporate notion that you have to be there, you have to be showing up and sitting at your desk, sometimes taking a walk in the woods or going for a run or doing a dance class or a hot yoga class, they really help me to get those creative juices flowing. But there is always, from me, that willingness to get quiet, that willingness to know that the answer is within me. So often we can get caught in that trap of, can I do it? Oh, isn't it already done? And the spiral. So this really helps you to stay in solution mode and really keep your eyes on the prize and to reassure yourself that actually you do have all the answers. You do have everything that you need. This is always something I find quite difficult. So number 4, being willing to let things go. Just because you've always done something doesn't mean you always have to. This has been a huge learning lesson for me. And do you know what? Sometimes you don't have to just keep going in the same direction. So when I left the employment that I had and I really went all in into creating this personal brand, and I hope you don't think that I'm really taking myself seriously when I say personal brand, but when I went all in 2014, what I was doing was I was creating a bit of a backup plan for myself. I'd been an agent, so I was talking to a lot of actors about their career and their headshots and where they wanted to go, and I just did that for a little while. But one thing that I found was, it didn't really light me up necessarily because I felt like I'd done it. I felt like I was doing it myself. And quite often, a lot of the clients that I had wanted a quick fix. They wanted the one solution that was going to change everything. And you know what? We all know this in business. Sometimes it isn't just that one thing that changes everything. It's a combination of things. It's consistent action. It's doing stuff on the daily. But I was getting work, so I was accepting it and it was fine. But what I was doing was I was really undercharging. And I was going with the belief, and actually I find this to be true quite a lot, that actors didn't really have a huge budget to be able to invest in themselves. A lot of the actors that were coming to me were very much in those early stages. So maybe they just left drama school or university. They had huge student debts. They were in their first kind of job and they weren't necessarily having a lot of disposable cash. Now, I hear that. I absolutely understand that. But they would then be saying things like, I just spent this on traveling, or I went on holiday, or I spent this in the pub or in Topshop or wherever it might be. And one thing that I had to do was that I had to step back and really understand what my true worth and my true sort of message was. So what I had was two sides of my business. So I had the kind of actors side, and then I had the small businesses, the personal brands, the freelancers, the creatives. And what I was finding was, in order to keep attracting both of those clients, I started to create a lot of content. And then it was all a little bit confusing. It was all like, I need to create more, or I need a separate website. And oh my goodness, I was creating so much work for myself. And gradually, as the years have gone on and my brand has grown much more in the direction that I want it to, the acting side has been interesting for me because my own acting career has really accelerated. But what I shied away from is that content for actors. Now, I could do it with my eyes closed, of course, but is it what I really want to be doing? Is it the best use of my time and my energy and my skills and talent and all that good stuff? Am I the right person for the job? And sometimes it comes down to do I want to do that? And if the answer is no, no could be a complete sentence. It doesn't have to have any more depth and meaning to it. It could just simply be no. And when you get to that point, oh my goodness, it's a beautiful moment, and you have to acknowledge it. Quite often we can quickly talk ourselves out of things like, well, I should, but what about that content that went to waste? Or what if somebody needs what I can offer them? I don't want to not feel like I can serve them. However, one thing that I've found is if I'm willing to let things go, if I'm willing to draw a line under something, I'm opening up the possibilities for other things. And when I can do that, it's so great. Okay, number 5 is to go into more detail around the things that I have done. So this can be in a very much sort of, this is what happened, this is where I spoke at, this is what occurred, this is how many clients that I've worked with. But going in a layer deeper and really understanding how that all happened and how that success occurred is quite an interesting one to play around with. So understanding your own patterns of success. So that could be, this happened because you actually sent the email, or you made the offer, or you put it somewhere different on your website so people could actually buy from you. It sometimes can feel really overcomplicated and really convoluted, the process to actually getting success. And sometimes when you're in that headspace of like, is it ever going to happen? It can be quite disheartening. But I want you to take some time now and look over the past year and really think about what you've done. What's gone well? What was unexpected? What offered something up that has not only given you satisfaction maybe in one area of your life, but something else came from that as well. And going into that place is really quite fascinating. Okay, one for the stationery lovers like I am as well. One thing that I've been working with recently is having so many different ideas and ways that I'm capturing my thoughts, and them generally being all over the shop. So often I can come out of the shower and think, oh my goodness, I've got a huge idea, or this has suddenly become much clearer. I've got to find a piece of paper and a pen and write it down. And sometimes that might just be the back of a receipt or a piece of like a leaflet that I've got hanging around, but I need to capture the idea. And I used to give myself the most enormous pat on the back for even capturing it. Like, wow, you were in the shower 1 minute and now you're writing it and you've come up with this thing. And what I was actually doing in that is I was doing a disservice to myself. The reason being was I wasn't capturing it and giving it a lovely container in which to grow. It was almost like I was just scattering some seeds somewhere and then just hoping for the best. Now, what I do, and it's something that I've been trying out since my birthday in November, is to have 3 books. So the first upgrade I've made is not to use things all the time that are just A5. I sometimes find it too small. I find it a bit restrictive in terms of capturing my ideas. So I went to Paper Chase and I purchased 2 different books. They're both £6 or £8 or something like that. They're quite reasonable and there's lots of space to write in them. So they're A4 and one has 4 different sections. So on one of them, I've labelled it 2019, and the categories that I have got are the big vision, creativity, money and abundance, and everyday joy. So really providing that space for myself in order to look at those big picture goals. The second one that I have is like a creative jotter or a creative planner. And I love this one because it gives me that space in order to map things out. So if I'm creating a course, I may have just done it on big pieces of A4 previously, and I'm always kind of looking at them and going, oh, where does it start? What's happening? Even by committing to putting it in my notebook has made all the difference. And then the other notebook that I have is one that I've spoken about before on another mini episode, which I will link down below. But this is a way that I can kind of capture my progress. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, I can get really impatient and think that things aren't happening quick enough, or I'm not enough, or wow, that seems a bold thing to say on a podcast. But you know what I'm saying? I think we can sometimes all spiral into that state of not feeling like we're doing everything that we need to be doing. So I'll give you a few ideas, but as I say, they are in that other podcast of what I'm welcoming. I'm so lucky because, and a way of noticing everyday joy as well. So go back and listen to that episode because it will give you lots more information. Step 7 has really been about turning off notifications. We know how the digital world works now. Once we've clicked on something, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whoever it might be, knows what we might like, and they give us more of that stuff. And when you're in that creation mode, the last thing you want is another advert or another person who is doing something similar to you jumping up in your face, whether you like it or not. And it's an interesting one for me. And I know that this is always going to continue. This is the power of marketing, isn't it? However, I do know that I need to take myself out of that sometimes. I need to put the boundaries in place. So turning off notifications, limiting my social media access, or the things that I have in my inbox, as in not checking my emails every 5 minutes, has played a huge part of allowing this creativity to come through. Next, permission and forgiveness. Going to the next level in your business or in your life, making changes, making space, making decisions, making moves, all require permission. And often it isn't the permission from those around us or a responsible adult. It can be the permission of ourselves. It can be giving ourselves that willingness to want what we want and to be excited about that next chapter, and to say that, yes, of course, I am grateful for all the things that I have now, but I want more. I want more of this stuff, and I don't have to choose. I don't have to restrict myself and say, oh, well, I've had all my blessings now. I've had all of the things that I deserve, and that's it. I can't get any luckier. So I want you to notice if you have any of those tendencies, if you ever start to limit yourselves. And I know I've done it myself. Sometimes I've had the most fantastic months, either financially or opportunity-wise. And immediately I go, no, I can't do any more. That's it. All my good luck has run out now. Back to the drawing board. And I know it's a sense of self-sabotage sometimes. I know that sometimes I don't feel comfortable with too much of a good thing. Maybe it's good for being grounded and keeping a look either side of me and really noticing what's going on in the world and being part of that. But also I think it's something that is ingrained in me, that we were maybe taught at school not to want all of the things, that we only could choose one or two things, and then the rest we would just have to yearn for. Another point around forgiveness is to forgive yourselves perhaps for the things that haven't gone to plan, or the things that were trickier or didn't quite work out the way that you thought they would. That is a really interesting exercise as well, because do you know what? You're a human being. You're not supposed to get all of these things right immediately. I promise you, any successful person out there has made huge mistakes. They probably still are every single day. Everybody is upgrading and tweaking as they go. This isn't something that you just have the right key to immediately. So really understanding how you can forgive yourself, making sure that you're being kind to yourself and saying, do you know what, at that point I didn't know any better, but now that I do, I can make different kinds of decisions. And so being really willing to have that conversation with yourself, to be kind, to go slow, and all those good things. Number 9, to be an expert, but also just a small part of the conversation. I remember when I was first starting my coaching business and I felt like I had to be all things to all people. And I would raise the bar and my own expectations so high. And I would get to that point that I would promise almost in an hour that somebody's life was going to be completely transformed beyond recognition and we would be able to do all of this in an hour. Now, I do work fast. I am a practical coach. However, it's not feasible to promise the world within an hour. Likewise, it's unlikely that you'll be able to completely declutter your whole entire house within the day. Do you know what I mean? These things sometimes take a bit of time. So, as I've seen myself over the last year really rise into this expert status and be invited to beautiful stages to share my message, I've also given myself that permission to just be part of the conversation, to not feel like I have to save everybody, because I'm such a people pleaser as well. So if that's you, if you're limiting yourself in some way, and this could be from the opposite end of the scale, that maybe you're saying, oh, maybe this is already done now. What's the point of me starting now? I'm so behind. Everybody else is so established. I'll never get there. So really notice those patterns for yourself. They'll give you so many clues around what's going on. And number 10, make the plan. Make it clear, make it accessible, make it doable, make it so you can easily win. There's no point really making something harder than it needs to be. I promise you. And I think this is why so many of my coaching clients come to me, because they always say you're really practical and you can make it work from A to B. And that is what it's all about. So I can't wait to hear what you create in your creative mode. But do check the description box as well, because there are a couple of things that may be really useful in supporting you through January. So I can't wait to share those. Have a look, and I look forward to welcoming you on board. And thank you so much for listening. As always, I love receiving your messages of where you're listening and what you're doing. And I'm so thrilled. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you do want to rate and review and subscribe over on iTunes, or even share it with a friend, I would love it. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to find out more about me and how we can work together, please go to nikkiraby.com or connect with me across social media at Nikki Raby. I'll see you soon. Bye.